He tore out his own eye and dropped it into a well. Not because he was tortured, not because someone forced him. He did it on purpose, wide awake, fully sane. And then, sometime later, he did something even stranger. He hung his own body from a tree for 9 days and 9 nights, pierced by his own spear, given to himself as an offering to himself. No food, no water, no one to help him down. Most gods in most mythologies want to be worshipped for their power. This one wanted something else. He wanted to know, and he was willing to mutilate himself to get it. That is Odin, the All-Father, King of Asgard. And underneath the horned helmets and the ravens and the Marvel movies, there's something far stranger going on. A genuinely disturbing philosophy of life, one that never got neatly resolved, and maybe was never meant to be. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why a culture surrounded by ice, darkness, and constant war looked at all of that, and decided their greatest god should be the one who suffers the most to understand it. Most supreme gods across mythology are built to represent stability. Zeus enforces order from Olympus. Yahweh in Genesis creates a cosmos and calls it good. Even Ra, sailing across the sky every day, represents an unbroken cycle you can set your calendar to. Odin represents none of that. He's not a god of harmony. He's not a god of moral clarity. He rules, but his rule is temporary, and he knows it. He seeks wisdom, but the wisdom he finds is bought with blood, not given as a gift. He commands war, yet he is also a poet. He values honor, yet he's famous, even among his own worshippers, as a breaker of oaths. Here's the thing that made Norse mythology genuinely radical for its time. The universe Odin lives in was never designed to last. The Norse called their world tree Yggdrasil, and even that great tree, the structure holding the 9 worlds together, is being slowly gnawed at by a serpent at its roots. Everything, including the gods, is on a countdown. So Odin isn't a god who sits above the chaos, calmly directing it. He is inside the chaos. He knows the ending. He knows Ragnarok is coming. He knows roughly how it plays out, and he knows he personally dies in it, swallowed by a wolf in the final battle, in front of everyone. Try to sit with that for a second. Imagine being the most powerful being in your universe, and knowing with total certainty the exact way your story ends, and it isn't victory. What do you do with that information? That single question is the seed of everything else we're about to talk about. Let's go back to that eye. The well Odin sacrificed his eye to belong to a being named Mimir, and it wasn't an ordinary well. Drinking from it granted cosmic understanding. Mimir would only let him drink if Odin gave something up in exchange. Odin didn't hesitate. He plucked out one of his own eyes and let it sink into the water. Here's what's philosophically important. Odin didn't get wisdom as a reward. He got it as a trade. And in Norse thought, that distinction matters enormously. In a lot of religious traditions, wisdom is something granted. Through revelation, through grace, through enlightenment that arrives when you're ready. In Odin's world, nothing works that way. Knowledge doesn't come looking for you. You go hunting for it, and it costs you something real every single time. That's the entire logic behind the story of him hanging on Yggdrasil. He wasn't hanging there as punishment. He hung himself there voluntarily, pierced by his own spear, staring down into the roots of the tree, refusing help, refusing food, refusing to give up, because he was trying to glimpse the runes, the hidden symbols that let you read the shape of reality itself. On the 9th night, they finally appeared to him, and he seized them screaming. Think about what kind of worldview produces a story like that. Not, study hard and you'll understand the universe. More like, reality will only show you its secrets if you're willing to be broken by the process. That's a brutal philosophy, but it's also, in its own way, an honest one. Anyone who has genuinely wrestled with a hard truth about themselves, about the world, about the people they love, knows that real understanding rarely feels good when it arrives. It usually costs you a comfortable illusion first. Odin's missing eye is the walking symbol of that trade. Every time you look at him, you're looking at proof that he paid for what he knows. He sees more clearly than anyone else in the 9 worlds, and he will never stop being reminded of what it cost him to see that way. Here's where Odin becomes genuinely unlike almost any other wisdom god in world mythology. His knowledge is never just for contemplation, it's a weapon. He doesn't collect wisdom to sit quietly and understand the universe. He collects it to use, to manipulate outcomes, to tilt battles, to choose quietly and privately which side wins a war centuries before it happens. There's a story where Odin disguises himself as an old farmhand to seduce his way into stealing the Mead of Poetry, a magical drink that turns whoever tastes it into a master poet and scholar. He doesn't win it through virtue, he wins it through seduction, trickery, and a fairly ruthless betrayal of the giant who trusted him. Then he escapes by turning himself into an eagle and flying home, spitting the mead out for the gods to share. Sit with that for a second. The god most associated with wisdom in the entire Norse pantheon got his signature gift through deception. Not because the myth makers thought that was fine and heroic, but because they understood something uncomfortable about how knowledge actually spreads in the real world. It isn't always earned nobly. Sometimes it's stolen, smuggled, extracted through cunning rather than virtue. That's a much more honest account of how ideas move through history than most mythologies are willing to admit. And this is exactly why Odin is impossible to reduce to a simple, good god. He isn't. He's not meant to be. He's meant to represent the uncomfortable truth that power and wisdom in the real world rarely arrive clean. Now here's where the philosophy gets genuinely tragic, in the ancient Greek sense of that word. Not sad, tragic meaning a story where the ending is fixed, the hero knows it, and they act with full commitment anyway. Odin knows Ragnarok is coming. He knows roughly how each of the major gods dies. He knows he personally is going to be killed by the wolf Fenrir in the final battle. This isn't a vague fear in the back of his mind. In Norse cosmology, it's closer to settled fact. So what does a god do with the absolute certainty of his own defeat? He recruits. This is the actual purpose behind Valhalla. Odin's Hall isn't a retirement home for dead warriors to rest peacefully forever. It's a training camp. Every day, the Einherjar, the chosen slain, wake up, fight each other to the death, and are magically restored by nightfall to feast and do it again the next day. Odin isn't collecting them because he loves violence for its own sake. He's building an army for a battle he already knows he's going to lose. That's the philosophical core of the entire mythology, and it might be the single most useful idea in it. Preparing for a fight you cannot win is not irrational. It's not pointless, because the alternative, doing nothing, accepting defeat before it arrives, guarantees you meet the ending with nothing. Odin refuses that. He'd rather walk into the end of the world at the head of the best prepared army the 9 worlds have ever seen than let despair make the decision for him. Ask yourself honestly, how many people, when they know a hard outcome is likely, or even certain, just stop trying? Odin is myth's answer to that instinct. His entire life is a rebuke to it. One of Odin's most common names in the old poems is simply Grimnir, the Masked One, or Vegtam, the Wanderer. He rarely appears as himself. He shows up at feasts disguised as a gray-bearded traveler in a wide hat, testing hosts, asking riddles, punishing the inhospitable and rewarding the generous. Why does the king of the gods spend so much time wandering around in disguise like some kind of undercover inspector? Because in Odin's universe, information is currency, and no one gives it away for free, including him. If he revealed himself as Odin everywhere he went, people would perform for him instead of showing him the truth. So he takes off the crown and puts on rags and lets the world show him what it actually is when it thinks no one important is watching. There's something almost unbearably lonely about that. The most powerful being in existence can't simply ask people what's true. He has to trick his way into finding out. Authority in Odin's world doesn't earn you honesty. If anything, it costs you access to it. So he gives up the throne temporarily, again and again, just to see clearly. It's the same pattern we saw with the eye and the tree. Clarity always has a price. Odin just keeps paying it over and over in different currencies. This is maybe the most human part of the whole mythology, buried underneath all the war and magic. Odin is isolated by his own knowledge. He knows things he can't say out loud, not because he's cruel, but because saying them would break something. If he told the other gods exactly how Ragnarok unfolds, in full detail, it might not prevent it. It might just paralyze everyone with dread years in advance, so he carries it, quietly, alone. Think about how that reframes leadership itself. In Odin's world, ruling isn't a prize, it's not comfort, luxury, applause, it's the burden of seeing the shape of the future and having to act, plan, recruit, prepare, while everyone around you still gets to live in relative innocence. That's a strange kind of gift to give your leader god. Most cultures build their supreme rulers as untouchable, glorious, above suffering. The Norse built theirs as worn down by the weight of what he knows. His kingship doesn't elevate him above loneliness, it's the direct cause of it. Odin's relationship with death completes the picture. He isn't a distant judge deciding who deserves heaven or hell. He's actively recruiting, choosing warriors. Half of those who die in battle go to him, half to the goddess Freya, and both destinations are essentially preparation for the war still to come. Even the dead in Valhalla don't get to rest in the way we usually imagine an afterlife working. They fight every day, they die every day, they come back every day. There's no permanent peace on offer anywhere in this cosmology, not even after you've already died once. That might sound bleak, and in a sense it is. But look at what it's actually saying. Existence, in the Norse worldview, isn't a problem you eventually solve by escaping it. Struggle doesn't stop when you die, it just changes shape. So you might as well meet it directly, with clarity, rather than waiting for a rest that was never actually coming. So who is Odin really, once you put all these pieces together? He is wisdom and violence, sacrifice and strategic manipulation, a ruler and a wanderer who trusts no one, a god who studies fate obsessively and yet never once tries to escape it, because he already knows that's not on the menu. Later philosophical and religious traditions tend to want their heroes to resolve contradictions like this, to choose a side, to end up either wise or violent, either honest or cunning, either at peace or at war. Odin never resolves anything. He just keeps carrying every contradiction at once, for as long as the story lasts. And maybe that's the most useful thing this 2,000-year-old myth still has to offer us. Not an answer, a posture. The Norse weren't handing down a philosophy that says, here's how to avoid suffering, or here's the secret to guaranteed victory. They built a god who says, the world will take something from you before it gives you anything real. Wisdom is heavy. Power doesn't last. The ending is already written, more often than we'd like to admit, and you prepare for the fight anyway. Odin isn't a god of comforting answers. He's a god built entirely out of hard questions. What's the value of knowledge if it can't save you? What's the point of power if you already know it's temporary? And if you genuinely knew how your story ended, would you still get up tomorrow and prepare for it? The Vikings who told these stories weren't naive people. They lived short, brutal, uncertain lives in one of the harshest climates on Earth, and they built their greatest god in the image of that uncertainty, not above it. That's not despair. If anything, it might be one of the most clear-eyed philosophies any culture has ever produced. If this kind of deep dive into mythology and philosophy is your thing, subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from. And let me know in the comments. If you knew your own ending the way Odin does, what would you spend the time you had left doing? Thanks for watching.